All right, this is probably one of the most important videos I've done in a long time. And this is really just the realization that the market's changing. And obviously, it's the real estate market that I'm referring to. I think when real estate markets change, it often catches people by surprise. And one of a couple of outcomes will sort of happen, depending on if you're prepared for it, if you see it coming. So I thought I would sort of talk about it. Again, it's probably one of the most important topics to talk about, think about. So we'll just get into it. So I'll share with you why I think the market's changing, sort of what I'm seeing day to day. I've been talking a little bit about what I think's coming, but I'm sort of declaring it now with what I've seen. I'll sort of, give you a picture of what I think will happen because again, I've been doing this a while, and I've seen markets change a couple of different times. Talk about what I'm doing because it's one thing to hey sit here and call it, but it's another thing to really see what I'm doing with it. And then finally, sort of looking back at my 16 years or 17 years, whatever it is now, history, and just sort of calling out the numerous times market has changed. Because if you're in this game, you've been in this game 5 years, you've been in probably one of the best sellers markets of all time, right? Double digit appreciation every year. You kind of feel like a genius. And I promise you, when the market changes, if you're not careful, you're going to get caught. So I thought I would just throw it out there, hopefully protect a couple of you, and we'll go from there. So again, right, I think it's pretty clear that the news cycle has gotten very negative, right? I think I called it out probably for the first time 6 or 7 weeks ago that I sort of sensed this was coming. I think what's happening really is buyers are revolting in high-priced markets, the Orange counties, the New Yorks, the Bay Area, San Francisco, Santa Clara, things like that. But I think that's happening in mass. Inventory is exploding, days on market are expanding, offers are decreasing. And I think that communication, because of the news cycle, is causing everybody to sort of step back and go, "Oh my gosh, we're going to go off a cliff again." Um, so I think that's what's happening. I think it's most relevant above the median in most markets. If your median like mine is 256, I believe the last time I looked, if you're at 350, 400, that inventory is increasing at a rapid rate, and it's going to keep doing that in my opinion. However, when you look below the median, it's not as obvious. But again, when the press gets negative, and because I believe real estate's an emotional purchase, it really can have impacts throughout this. There's no question that days on market are expanding, and I think we've only started to see this go. I expect it to expand, quite a bit more. I saw one number posted that the average days on market before it accepted offer in California was something like 15 days. It wouldn't shock me if this doubled, right, in the next 3 to 4 months, right? It went from 15 to 30 days. So stuff's going to sit longer. Real estate agents aren't going to be able to put it on the market and get, multiple offers and bidding wars and all of that nonsense is going to stop. I think what will actually start happening is you're going to see price cuts. It wouldn't shock me if we got to a point where certainly 30 or 40% of the inventory in the MLS or available is seeing at least one price cut. And I think what happens there is sellers are, very price elastic, right? They sort of remember the past. And sometimes it's hard to get them to convince that, today's different, right? You got to price it different. You can't be 2x the median and expect to get, dozens of people through an open house. It's not, 2 years ago. So I think that's going to happen. The other thing I think that's you know, a cause of this is, at least in my market, all the new construction I see is, at least 20% above the median. I think I see a few things just under 300, but most of this is, 350, 400, and that market is in trouble. I don't think I don't think that market's going to be healthy for quite a while. And then lastly, no one is creating the, mysterious affordable housing for first-time home buyers. Right? That market has been ignored, left behind. So first-time buyers have little to no inventory. So if they're scared of buying, they're just going to keep renting. So I think, I think those things are going to start to happen. I think many investors who started in the last 5 years are going to go bust. Um, Hopefully, if I say this and you're one of them, you're going to at least step back and go, God, what did he just say? I think there's a lot of folks who sort of like Warren Buffett talks about, right? When the tide rises, it rises all ships, and then when the tide goes out, you kind of find out who's not got a real business, who's been living too high. And I think there's been some people that have you know been living above their means and not saving and not rolling capital into a reserve account or something. So I hope this doesn't happen to you. I saw too many people get destroyed in the last downturn. So I'm calling this out, and hopefully it saves a couple of you. I think people who bought alligators. I think I did a video a couple ago about a subscriber who was upset with me, and basically his premise at the end of his rant was, hey, if it's an appreciating market, I can afford to be an alligator. Well, when markets change, I promise you will eventually lose that. Right? You might be able to hold on to an alligator for, a couple of months, maybe a year, but I promise you it will eventually get tiresome and you'll just let it go. I've seen it happen. That's why I believe, no alligators are the number one thing. It's why I made it video number 3, sort of after my introduction. Um, and unfortunately, I think some of you bought alligators, and you're gonna be in trouble if you don't just get it off the plate, right? Take that offer that maybe you don't want. But I think getting out from inventory sooner rather than later is a smart idea. I think flipping and wholesaling activity, again, lots of people have been very profitable in this business the last 5 years. It was okay if your flip took too much longer because prices were rising, so you got rewarded to be slow or run a sloppy business. I think wholesaling has been a tremendous business for the folks that got in early and really got their systems down. The folks that I work with are awesome, and I think those folks will continue. But I think there's a lot of people getting into wholesaling now, and I think that that's probably unfortunate timing, right? When markets roll over, you don't quite get the kind of appreciation and the kind of spreads that you need to make that work. So I expect both flipping and wholesaling activity to be cut in half as we get through this cycle. I do think there's some good news, right? I think being a landlord is going to be awesome. I think occupancy rates are going to go up. I think rental rates will continue to go up because people, who would ordinarily be buyers are just going to say, you know what, I'm going to take a year off the rail. I don't want to be an owner. I don't want to buy at the peak. I'll just continue to rent. Maybe I'll rent something nicer or something like that. So again, I think being a landlord is going to be great. I actually am now calling it the golden age of landlording, especially if you follow my model and invest in affordable housing. I think holding on to these, product that is bought below the median, that it's rented at market, decently repaired, what I call pride of ownership. There's just no downside, right? You could sell the thing if you had to, but I think owning it and letting your tenant pay it off is a great idea because as we get through this, this downturn, right, there will be another upturn, and those folks that are going to be comfortably holding almost riskless asset is going to be a pretty spectacular thing. I think there's also going to be a bunch of sellers who bought during the Depression, right? And I was one of them who bought through 2010 and 2014. I think some of them are going to see this market and go, oh my gosh, I got to get out. I want to sell everything. So I expect there to be even more impetus on supply as people try to get out of the market. And that's again going to artificially pop up supply and make the numbers even look worse. So expect these things to happen. And I expect this cycle to last at least 18 months, right? I think it's probably been going on 6, 8 weeks, so call it a month or two. I think it's got at least, by my math, 17 to 22 months left to go. And it's going to happen, right? It's out there. It's sort of the momentum is swung, and now it's now it's how are you going to deal with it? How am I going to deal with it? So first and foremost, I want it to be clear, I hate sellers markets, right? The one that we've been in the last 5 years are hard, right? And what I mean by that is it's easy for these, investors to come in, buy something, hold it, 30 days and sell it. it doesn't take a lot of creativity. It doesn't take a true business. It doesn't take real work when prices are going up 10% a year. I think it's I call it artificial. I don't know really what else to call it, but I think it's easy to feel like a genius in a seller's market. And I've been through a couple of these now, and I know that it's it's fake. So I've been looking forward to when it rolls over. I love markets that wash out investors, right? I think there will be less investors in a year. I think there will be less people flipping stuff. I think there'll be less real estate agents. I think there will just be less people in the business, right? When it's easy to make money, it sort of attracts a certain type, and then when it gets hard and people go bankrupt and they start, losing properties, then it becomes a market where if you're really doing your business, you're making offers every day, you can really do lots of special things. And lastly, I've said it before, I think I just did a video on it a little bit ago. I love affordable housing. It's especially great when the occupancy and rental rates are going up because families want to rent versus buy. And I think that's the market we're in, and it could be that way for a couple of years, hence my notion of a golden age of landlording. Lastly, I was sort of calling back to my 16 years of history. Markets change all the time, right? 2003 through 2007, at least in my experience, was the biggest sellers markets of all time. It was obviously fostered by ridiculous financing. Um, that last 15 or 20% was completely artificial. I hope never happens again because it just caused the crash to be so much worse. But it's something we lived through. 2007, 2008, the sort of the market rolled over, everything changed, right? Financing dried up, the foreclosures or default notices, NODs rose spectacularly, and what are you going to do? Then there was sort of the 2010 through 2014 where motivated sellers were everywhere, right? Mostly banks. They're just like, get out of this, and you were seeing price drops every week or every couple of weeks, and it was frankly pretty scary. Then there was back to the seller's market, right? 2014 through 18, sellers markets, double-digit appreciation. Everybody and their brother could make money in real estate. So it's interesting. And then when I'm calling 2018 through 2020, it just rolls over again, right? But basically, I think that's because buyers revolt, right? I think interest rates gone up, pricing's gone up, the payment's no longer relevant or no longer affordable, and they've just stopped. And it's cheaper to rent, and it's frankly a wise financial decision. So I like markets. I like markets like 2018 through 2020 because I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to make 50 offers for one acceptance. I don't need, the goodness of a seller's market to make me profitable. So also, I like less competition, right? I think there'll be less investors, less buyers in this market, and that's always good for me. So in the end, I do think this is one of the most important videos I put out, sort of calling that turn. Do me a favor, leave a comment if you agree, disagree. We're up to 176 subscribers last time I checked. I'd like to get that up over 200 as fast as possible. So do me a favor, and if you haven't subscribed, please do that. Please send this out to a couple of your friends. That would be great. And if you want to send me an email, it's right there at mzuber@onerental@a-time. Have a great day.